Hello everyone and welcome back to Vintage Speedworks. Today we're working on this Honda CB200T. I purchased two of these bikes for only $20. That's right, $20. The gentleman that was selling these bikes, he was moving out of town, so he wanted to get rid of these two bikes that he had in his storage unit. These bikes were, they were taken apart. He didn't have any recollection of the titles or anything like that, so I purchased them without titles. But one of the things that really drew me to the deal was that he only wanted $20, and I saw in the pictures that he had an original Honda seat in the background and it was in really good condition. So I made a deal with him. I went out there and I paid him for the bikes, and here we are. Now, one of the bikes did have a seized engine, so that one I'm not working on right now. That one is actually in the back over there, but I am working on this one. I got the engine running. I actually took the bike apart more or less, and we're only gonna rattle kind of restore this bike just to see if we can find a better home for it. I'm really not looking to fully restore this bike, but I do wanna, kind of get it looking pretty nice so that maybe we can get a little bit of profit from the sale of this bike. I already painted the motor, the engine, kind of cleaned up a little bit of the frame. But what's next to do on this bike is actually paint the gas tank. Now, I did have to purchase this tank from eBay. The bike didn't come with a gas tank. However, this bike originally would have had a gray gas tank with the gray side covers. Now, when I received this tank, it actually came in the color red. And when I put it on the bike, I really liked the color red, actually, on the way it looked on this bike. And so I think we're going to go back to the red. Some of these year models did come in a red color. Most of them were gray, to be honest, but they did come in a red color which had like a section here in the middle that was black. And then it had the red side covers. So I think we're going to do something like that for this project. Now, I already kind of sanded the gas tank. I got it primered. I did check for any dents. There still is a little few imperfections that I need to kind of work out and kind of sand through. But for the most part, the tank is already ready for paint. So in this video, we're gonna go ahead and mask it. We're gonna go ahead and see if we can add a little bit of a custom touch to it and go from there. All right, so I have my gas tank here, and it's kind of dark right now because I want to kind of show you guys what I'm gonna do here. Now, I have a light. Now, this light is just a work light that I purchased at Walmart. I'm gonna use a little bit of water. I'm gonna put the water on the gas tank to kind of show you guys how it's supposed to look. Now, I added this electrical tape here to the light so that when I turn it on, it gives me kind of like a stripe on the light. And what I'm gonna use that for is to see if there's any waviness on the gas tank itself. So let me show you how that looks. So as you can see, if I hold the light here and I start kind of putting the water over the gas tank, what you want to see is you want your light to show you that it's straight. If you see any sort of waviness to your gas tank, then you will see it in the lights. You're looking straight at the light, and that's what's going to show you. I'm going to try to lower the light here a little bit. There we go. So the water is kind of acting like your clear coat. And so as you go, you'll be able to see any imperfections. I already found an imperfection here, so I need to work on that. Probably need to add a little bit of filler there. But overall, the gas tank is looking pretty straight. It did have some dents, so I did have to fill in some dents with a little bit of filler. But overall, I'm pretty happy with that. So I think the next step is going to be just to block sand it one more time with about 2000 grit sandpaper, and then we are ready to start masking so we can get this ready for paint. All right, so I've gone ahead and put the tank back on the motorcycle. And the reason why you want to do that is because whenever you're masking your gas tanks, you want to make sure that all the components kind of line up the way they're supposed to line up when they're on the bike. And that way, when you go ahead and do your striping, or if you're going to do any masking on your gas tank, it actually lines up well. I like to do that. You know, some people just go with the original look. Now on the Honda CB200Ts, originally they had sort of like it's an area here that's black, but if you notice, there's a contour here on the gas tank. It kind of goes up and then it goes over a little bit and then it goes straight this way. Now, you know, I do want to do the same thing to make it kind of look original. However, I think that I want to follow a different line. On the original bike, the area here that's black was a little bit too close to the bottom line, in my opinion. So if you notice on like Honda CB 550s or well, yeah, on the 550s, I think the 500s had where it kind of dropped all the way down, but the 550s kind of have a thinner area here in the middle. And I don't want to make it so thin, but I do want to make it to where it lines up with the lines here of the seat. So I have the seat here in the area. I just got to make sure it's in the right location. Here we go. So that's the location of the seat right there. And so what I want to do is I want to follow this line of the seat. And the way you can do that is to get your initial line is by using a tape like this. This is 3M 6mm tape. This is for like your pinstripes, or you know, when you're masking kind of custom paint and stuff like that. So I went ahead and cleaned this out with a few rags and some alcohol. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just eyeball this line right here. And I want to make it straight to the bottom of the tank, but I kind of want to just eyeball it and make sure it flows with this line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece here and I'm just going to kind of line it up. So I'm going to start here at the front. I think that's a good height. So I'll take a piece, just put it there, and then keep in mind, this bottom line is the line that's going to be red all around, and then we're going to have a white line that is where this line is going to be. So what I want to do is that white line, which is going to be like the inside, or the, I guess the middle layer of that black portion here in the middle, that one's the one that's going to be white. So it should kind of go in through, it should kind of flow into this chrome edge here on the seat. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to follow that, make sure the line is as straight as possible, and try to line it up with that. Yeah, so on the original bike, if I just looked at some pictures, but on the original bike, the logo kind of comes up to about right here, and the line is very close to that. So I think I'm gonna keep it here. I think that looks pretty good. That way there's a little bit more of a gap in the front that there is in the back. It's not gonna be original, and I don't think we're going for original, On the camera, it looks a little bit funny, but I'll show you here in a bit how that looks. Now I'm trying to get the top line to also look pretty straight. But yeah, I like how that looks. So here's a different angle for you all. As you can see, it looks a little bit weird straight from the side like that. But once you look at it from a different angle, you can see that we have a big gap here in the front, which is going to show a lot of the red paint we're going to have up here. And so now we have a thicker edge here that lines up with the top of this. So the red is kind of gonna flow this way, but it's gonna tie in with the white, and the white is gonna still tie in because the line is your eye is gonna kind of stay with this line going up to the white line on the top, which is gonna be fine. But that'll increase the red portion of this a little bit more, and it'll give us a more, I don't know, I think it'll add a little bit more of the red all around the gas tank, and it makes it look a little bit tighter. The originals had a big gap here, and what happens with the black being so tall is that then your whole tank ends up looking really long or thick, and so or tall, I guess you could say. And so what happens is if you bring it down, if you bring this area down, kind of like on the CB550s, then that makes your tank look a lot sleeker, and your bike silhouette looks a lot thinner. Which is, I think, what we're going for here. So this isn't a custom, well, I guess it is a custom paint job because we're doing it how we want. But yeah, it's gonna look kind of original because, I mean, that's the way that they came from the factory. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more tape. So you have your tape running through here. Oh, first of all right, so now that I'm happy with the way that we masked this, I'm just gonna grab a razor blade and I'm gonna hold it on the line where I want my tape to be. I'm gonna kind of stick it in there a little bit, and then I'm just gonna pull on the tape, and that'll make a clean cut right there. And I'm gonna do the same thing for the bottom one. I'm gonna hold it in place, kind of jab it into the tape, not into your paint, into the tape, and then just kind of up and pull. Gotta keep your tape lines there. And so what I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to paint, the middle portion black, but I think I want to add a little bit of design in there. So maybe give it like a more of a custom look. And I think I know how I'm going to do that. So I bought this mesh material, and I still want it to look black in the middle like the original one. Now again, this bike was gray originally, but there is a red version of this bike. That's what I'm referring to. And so that red version of this bike has a black insert in the middle. So I want it to look like that. But I still want it to look black in the middle, but I do want to add a little bit of a design without taking from the black portion or from it looking black. And so the way that I want to do that, or the way that I'm going to do that, is I'm going to fog it black, but just slightly leave a little bit of gray actual primer. And I think the primer is going to tie in with the gray color of the motor. So I'm gonna make it look black for the most part. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to come back, and once it looks black, what I think we can do is we can sand it in a specific way so that it can reveal some of that primer gray, but then keep, make it look black. In other words, still have that color black showing through. And then once we have those scratch marks and all of that, but still have a very pronounced black in the middle, then we can come back and add our kind of grid system or little mesh design that we want to add there. So I think it's gonna look pretty good. I've never done this, so we'll see how it turns out. But I think overall, it will look very nice. All right, so to mimic this side, you could potentially take a bunch of measurements, and that's what I'm kind of gonna do here. What I'm gonna do is I took a measurement with my caliper here, or micrometer, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a measurement here. I took a measurement on the other side, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little piece of tape, and I have this locked in from the other side. So what I did is I'm just going to take this tape and put it right where that measurement is. So I need to go a little bit more up. All right, so I have most of the important stuff covered here in the shop. I covered the bike that's closest, and I'm gonna just kind of start getting this base coat on there. Like I mentioned, I moved my camera further back, so I don't wanna If you've ever painted anything, you know that paint gets everywhere. So here we go. Now, one thing I do advise is get yourself a little rag like this one. Just put some alcohol on it and just try to maybe get yourself a little test panel like this one, and then just see how the paint comes out first. You don't want to start off where you have a clogged tip and then the first stroke that you take of the paint, you kind of get that all messed up, or all your paint messed up after you prepped for so long. So just do a couple of passes and then you can start. I do have a little bit of overlap here on my tape. Let me peel that back a little bit. Good. All right, so here we go. Now I have some of that paper that I used here to cover, so I can start there and I can start working my way around the tank. Just making sure I have an even coverage, or even coverage. Now you see there is some spattering happening, so you gotta be careful. Clean your tip. Now we're not trying to fully cover this yet. We're just trying to get our base coat on there. Clean your tip again. All right, so I've kind of let that tack up a little bit, maybe for like 15-20 minutes. And now I'm going to continue now with coat number 2. You don't have to worry about the bottom too much. You can always, once it's already painted, you can always come back and kind of paint that again, or kind of go through that again. So that second coat, as you can see, this is the second coat. It looks pretty good, but we still need to do a lot more to it. Once this dries, then I'll go ahead and come back and give it another coat. So it's the next day and it's time to get our tank unmasked here. We're gonna start removing the tape that we put on the tank and see how our final product. Well, this isn't our final product, but it is going to be what we have for now. we have the tank here and we removed our masking tape from the middle section. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and add some more of this 6mm masking tape all the way around where the pinstripe was. But this time, I'm gonna go ahead and add the tape to the red side. So instead of putting it on the gray side, I'm gonna put it on the red side, because what I wanna do now is tape off all the red. So really what I'm trying to do is just trying to follow the red line here. Now we don't have to be so careful, because this tape is really, all it's doing is just covering the red area. So just apply it. Hopefully y'all can see that, and then where you see the edge, that's where we're gonna make the turn. Now this line doesn't have to be 100% perfect, because we are going to be applying a white edge at the very end of this paint job. So that white edge is gonna cover the black, which is the black here, and the red. So it's gonna overlap on those two colors. So we don't have to get it super perfect, but you know, it's a good practice just to follow the same design or the same edge. So that way it's a lot easier for us at the end. So I'm getting ready to spray this, and I'm gonna shake my can here, my spray paint. It's just cheapy spray paint. But I wanted to show you, this is the grid that I purchased at my local dollar store. This is a little mesh fabric, I guess you can call it. It's flat on one side, but it has raised kind of little sections here. It's meant to go under rugs, so your rugs don't move all over the place. But it's very soft, and it kind of has like a gel kind of feel to it. So what I think we're gonna do is we're gonna set that on top of our gas tank like that, and that's gonna give us a little grid system, which is gonna be on the next step. So I'm not gonna do this in this step. I do wanna get the tank to look pretty black in this area. Again, not full coverage, but I do wanna get it to where it looks black, and then I think we can sand it down in one kind of direction, and we can get like a good scratch kind of area going, or good scratch look, I guess you can say. Then we can come back and apply our mesh and then finish it off and go heavy on that pads when we have the mesh on top. And then that'll give us a really black section, but the areas that get covered by this mesh will still kind of look like the gray and the scratches that we left on there. So I think that might look kind of cool. So we're gonna try it out and see how it goes. All right, so now that we have our black color kind of on the tank, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take some 60 grit sandpaper. 60 grit. Now, when you're finishing tanks, at this point, you pretty much don't wanna use anything too crazy as far as the amount of scratching that you're doing to the tank after it's already finished. But in this case, since we want to get kind of a texture to the tank, then I'm going to use 60 grit sandpaper. Now the way I'm going to use this is I have it on my it's like a little sponge pad, I guess you can call it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scratch the tank in this way, but I'm only going to do it in one way, and I'm going to see how that looks. And when I'm doing it, I'm gonna go ahead and press on it so that I can get as deep a scratch as I can get to kind of get some of that texture out of the paint. So I'm gonna go ahead and try it. We might have to recoat it again, kind of spray it over again, but we're gonna go ahead and give it a try here. All right, so here we have the piece of fabric that we're going to use. Now, like I mentioned, this is kind of like a placeholder or like a holder for your mats that go on your doorstep so they don't move around. That's what we're going to use to cover our tank now here, so we can get that pattern, and then we can sprint over it. If you notice, this has a flat side and it has a texture side on this side, which has more of a raised pattern, I guess you could say. And so what we want to use is the flat side going towards the tank, so that way we can get it nice and stretched and on where it's supposed to go. So now I could just lay it like this, it's straight, kind of going vertical like that, but I think it might look even better. It might give the bike a little bit more of a faster type of look, I guess you can say, if it's going in an angle like this, kind of like that. That might make the bike look like it's kind of moving forward a little bit, and I think it'll give us a nicer look. So I'm gonna go ahead and tape it there. I think that looks pretty good. It's a little bit crooked here, so we gotta adjust it a little bit. Right there. And then we can start painting. So I'm gonna take probably grab some Gorilla Tape. to tape it to our tank. All right, so we've let our tank kind of dry for a little bit here. We won't want to let it dry too much because then we might not be able to remove this. But I'm going to go ahead and start removing our little cover here and see what we got. Nice. Nice. I think that looks pretty cool. Now I did see that I kind of warped the mesh here a little bit, so the lines, instead of going straight, they kind of took a little dip here. And then we see here we have a little bit of where the paint kind of filled in the gaps. But overall, I mean, I think it looks pretty cool. And if you look closely, you can see some of the scratches that we have there, but like I mentioned, they're not very noticeable because we covered most of it. So, I mean, you can still see some of the scratches, but not too much. So yeah, I think that's gonna look pretty cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this dry for a little bit longer, just because I don't want to disturb it or anything. And then I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side of the tank, and then we'll go on to the next step. But I like it. I think it looks pretty cool. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and spray this edge here. And I wanna be really careful because I don't really wanna overdo it. I just wanna kind of blend the edges because I don't want the lines to completely go all the way to the edge. That should give it a kind of like a more of a depth to it. I don't know if it's gonna work, but let's go ahead and give it a shot here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on this edge. Now I do have tape that goes all the way here, so I'm keeping an eye on the lines. So I'm gonna spray mostly on the masking tape and then kind of just ease myself into the edge here. So I'm gonna give that a try here. Ideally, you would want to do this with something like an airbrush, but so you can get more of a consistency, but we don't have that right now, so I'm just gonna improvise a little bit and do that. There we go. There we go. That's all we're looking for, just a little bit of a coverage into our design, just to kind of blend in the edges. So that should give it, once we clear coat it, that should give the tank a little bit more of like, it'll kind of make this edge kind of seem like it's have more depth to it, I guess. All right, don't want to overdo it too much, but yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I did go up a little bit here, notice here, and it does look a little bit like fogged off because, you know, some of that overspray kind of gets on top of this. But once we clear coat it, then it'll really, and of course we have to clear coat the whole tank. So once we clear coat everything, it should kind of make this look really wet and really, really nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing for the other side. And then I'm gonna let this dry for about 24 hours. Once everything is dry and I know that everything's nice and dry, then I can go ahead and start unmasking everything. So we have our design here kind of finished on our tank. As you can see, we have our pattern here that we added. You can see a little bit of the background scratches and stuff that we added, but not too much. And then I went ahead and kind of fogged it around, just kind of added a little bit of black just to kind of blend in the design into that middle section. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and remove all the tape around the whole tank, and that'll allow us to see the red once again, because our next step is going to be to add the pinstripe. I'm not too sure if it's just gonna be a pinstripe all around or like a small border all around in a white color. But we are gonna add some sort of design here. So I'm still debating on what to do here for the tank. I think we might do a little bit of a wider kind of stripe here in the front and then move it thinner to the back. I'm not too sure, but I still need to unmask it to kind of see the red color once again. So let me go ahead and do that and I'll show you how that looks. So we have our tank here on the table, and normally I would tell you just let your tank dry for a couple of days. You don't want to rush this because when you go to masking your tank, you might run into issues with the paint being too soft to the touch, or having issues where when you unmask the paint or unmask the tank, that you might have some paint peeling off. I had a few smudges here on the front where I might have pressed into the masking tape a little bit too hard, so I got a little bit of a couple of imperfections there, but that's fine. I mean, like I mentioned before, we're not trying to get this tank to be like a show quality type of design or tank or anything like that. Like nothing like a custom paint job or anything like that. We're just trying to, you know, make it look as nice as possible so that we can kind of pass it on to the next owner and they'll have something that, you know, they'll like until they can, you know, figure out if they want to redo it and paint it all over again, or at least give them a couple of, you know, years or months of protection, you know, it's just to get them started. So, so the next thing I want to do is I want to start to mask the tank. Now I put it here on my table because I think that that's going to be easier for me to do. This transition here from the red to the black, this is where I want to come in and add a little bit of color. Now, usually the Honda CB200Ts in this model, they would have a stripe all around, even stripe all around. So we could do that. However, what I wanted to do is I wanted to see if I can maybe add a little bit of a thicker line here in the front, just to kind of have a little bit more black here, but then thin it out as it comes back here, kind of thin the line out, and then that way the line can go all the way around kind of thin. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. So what I wanna start by doing is just to kind of eyeball, I want a line here in the back to have a thickness of about 6 millimeter, which is the thickness of this masking tape. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add a bit of masking tape here in the middle, and I'm gonna stick it to the middle of the line, and I'm gonna follow that all the way back here, and then stick it to the middle of the line just to kind of create a line. So that's kind of where I want the line to be. So in order to get that line all the way around, then that means that we have to mask this side and then also this side. So we're gonna mask the whole tank again. That's just what we have to do. But at least like this, we'll have kind of a representation of what we're trying to accomplish when we go to masking. I did buy some paint for the line that we're gonna add here. Now this is actually, it looks white, but it's not white. If you were to add white, I think white kind of gives it too much of a bright color, and it makes the line stand out a lot, and it kind of looks unnatural. Yeah, it really just looks unnatural. So what I did is I purchased this. This is actually called French Cream, and it's kind of like an off-white. This one is a matte color, but once we add the clear, that'll add some shine to it. But this is the closest that I can find to like the closest white, but not actually white. So we're gonna use that for the line all the way around. All right, so I'm gonna start here in the front because I wanna figure out what kind of design I want to do for the front. Now I do wanna keep the line the same distance all the way around for the outline of the line. So I'm looking for about 3 millimeters, which is half of this tape all the way around. And then down here, the same thing. I'm looking for about 3 millimeters from the edge of the black line. Start there. And I'm gonna work my way all the way around. All right, so I have my initial line that goes all the way around, kind of even with the outside of the black line, all the way around. Got it fairly even. And now I'm gonna tape the inside portion. Now the inside portion is where we can add a little bit of design. Like I mentioned, I'm gonna stay close to this black line here, but in the front, I wanna see if maybe I can add a little bit of design here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start here on the top and kind of mask my line. That's about right. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go all the way around. I'm gonna see if I can do kind of like a gradual turn right here and bring that white a little bit in here, and then have that kind of make a turn here. Not positioned very well, and I'm sure you guys are not going to be able to see that, but it's kind of hard to make that turn, but I'm still going to try it here. All right, I think that will look pretty cool. So let me show you what I'm thinking. So what I'm thinking is if we add a little bit of white all the way around here, we'll kind of gradually start the line here. And obviously this line needs to be a little bit more straight here at the bottom, but you get the idea. We can probably keep this line pretty straight here at the bottom. And then this whole portion here will be white or the off-white, and we can carry that. So this line will be thin all the way around, but then it will kind of open up here and add a little bit more white. So I kind of like that. And I like it because that brings the tank a little bit closer in this way in the middle portion when you're looking at the bike from the side. So I think I'm gonna roll with that. So I'm just gonna continue the line here. We're gonna mask that off, pulling on our tape as we go. All right, so there we go. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue the same way on the other side. I need to mask now the inside portion of this and then the outside portion again, which, you know, takes time, but I like that. So that line will kind of open up here. It'll kind of be kind of white, kind of off-white, I guess you can say. And then it's gonna go all the way around the tank, and it's gonna give it a nice look, I think. So that's how the tank is gonna look. Yeah, I think that'll look pretty nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to mimic that on the other side, and we'll go from there. You know, I think when people were still building things with their hands, you know, people weren't as critical of how people were doing that. I mean, there was a lot of things that people had to get better at, and they tried getting better at it because, you know, it was their craft and they wanted to present something nice to people. But it just, when machines started to take over, you know, machines were more precise, and, you know, things started to become very, you know, cookie cutter, and there was tolerances that, you know, companies started to implement to make sure that the customer always got a certain product a certain way, because otherwise, you know, now they were getting picky because now a machine is the one that's making that stuff. And so to me, it's just that kind of killed this idea that, you know, everything just has to be perfect now. And you know, when you do things by hand, things aren't always going to be perfect because it's a human making them. But we become so critical about even human stuff, you know, when we were making stuff, it needs to be perfect. You know, the custom culture now, it's like everything is so perfect, and you know, people are making things that are just so perfect. It looks like it's made by a machine, and I mean, I don't know who came up with that idea that everything now has to look like it's made by a machine with certain tolerances, and we put all this pressure on humans to make this perfect stuff. And honestly, you know, handmade stuff that has imperfections, I feel like that speaks more to people than whenever you see a bike and it kind of looks like it was just put together by a machine. The welds were super perfect and everything is just so perfect on that machine. It's just, it's kind of lame, to be honest. Like, I feel like we've gotten too far, too critical about ourselves. That's why when you see handmade stuff, you know, speaks to you, you know? That's why I liked Shinya Kumara, you know? He made bikes that he makes and they're not perfect, and I don't think he tries to make them perfect. That's not the idea, is that they're made by, you know, somebody that loves motorcycles and is an artisan, and he adds his human element to them, and that's what makes them look, I feel like that's what makes them look human. I don't know if that's even the term for that, but you know, it makes the bikes look like there was time invested in them, and there was even though the perfect bikes look like, yeah, obviously people who make them, they take a long time to make them, but they take a long time to make them perfect, indistinguishable from things that are made by a machine. And is that what you want? I mean, I don't know. If you ask me, when I look at something that I know it's handmade and it has a little bit of imperfections here and there, but you can tell that it was a human that sat down and, you know, took their time to build that, even if it's not perfect, but they added their human element to it. That's, to me, that goes a long way, and it looks a lot nicer. So I'm just gonna give this a quick glance over, but I think that looks pretty good. There we go. So we're gonna go ahead and paint that strip now. I think that's gonna look really nice. So we're gonna go ahead and mask the whole tank now, all the way around. We'll go from there. Now, for those of you that live in Texas, I live in Texas too, and it is about 100 degrees outside. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this inside to my air-conditioned space, and I'm gonna finish the masking there, so I don't sweat my you-know-what off. All right, so we have our tank. Masked off already. And as you can see, we left only the edge that we're going to paint in the white, off-white color. Now, notice how I didn't, you know, it looks kind of off because there's different colors going on, but we're really focusing on just the yellow line here. And it looks kind of weird because there's a couple of lines going over. There's some black lines, there's red lines, but the spacing should be kind of even with if you look at just the green line here. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and test out this, it's a French cream color. Wow, that spray's pretty thick on there. All right, we'll try that out. Wow, okay, so let's see how it goes. That's my first coat. I'm gonna let that tack up, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna give it another coat. But I think that looks pretty good. So I went ahead and did about 4 coats of this paint all around the tank and that little line that we were gonna have. It's not gonna be perfect. I used this new tape here, this blue tape, and it was fairly inexpensive, and I don't think that it did the job. I think we might have a little bit of overspray, but I don't know. We need to check. Hopefully not, but I'm gonna start removing the tape here. Hopefully the tape doesn't peel off any paint or anything like that. So I'm gonna start removing the tape and see what we get. All right, everyone, so we're done with the paint on our tank, and I think it looks great. Let me show you. All right, so what do we learn from doing this process? Overall, I'm very happy with the way that the gas tank came out. I like the pattern that we went with here. Now, it's not as pronounced as I would have wanted this pattern to kind of show up. And the reason that that happened was because I didn't scratch enough of the base to get it to a gray color that could show through. It was still kind of black, so when I added more black in the clear coat, it really dulled everything out. So what I would have done different is to add a lighter base coat so that when we put our fabric on top, so that the gray would show through more and give us more of that grid system. However, right now we actually did get a pattern that kind of looks like fabric. It kind of looks like there's an embroidered pattern. And so I think that looks kind of cool. Another thing I learned is that, preparation, you have to prep the tank very well. Make sure there's no debris, make sure there's no contaminants on the tank that will bubble your paint and, things of that nature. I had a few areas in the tank where I did get a few runs, especially here in the front on the top. When I went to masking the tank, it was a little bit too wet still, so I didn't let it dry enough as I should. So usually you let it dry for a couple of days. This time I kind of wanted to shoot the video kind of fast, so I applied some tape and I kind of pressed down on the paint and it was still wet. So I kind of got some smudges there. But overall, in the areas that really matter, which are the sides, I think the tank came out pretty well. Another thing that I learned is that, spraying with the spray can is really, you can get a lot of use from it in a situation like this, where you just want to get your bike running, you want to get a nice paint on it, and you want to just get down the road. I mean, really, that's a lot better than kind of sitting around and waiting to purchase expensive paint guns and compressors and all of that and not getting to enjoy your bike. So getting your bike on the road and just spray painting it and getting it down the road, it's very doable. I spent about $50 doing this. And so you can do it yourself too and get yourself out on the road. Once you save up to buy all those paint guns and everything that you need to do a professional type of job, then you can go ahead and do that. But like in this situation, we just want to get this to the next owner so they can enjoy it themselves. Now, when you spray paint something, the droplets of paint on a Rattle can or like on a spray paint can, they tend to be kind of big. So when you're spraying, you do get a lot of coverage in some areas, and that coverage can be hard to manage without getting any runs. Now, I did get some runs in a few areas, not many, but I did get a few runs, and that happens because sometimes as you're spraying, sometimes the paint comes out too thick and it doesn't atomize correctly. So what happens is, since there's not a lot of pressure in that spray can, then you get a lot of, heavy coverage in some areas. That is what causes your runs, because there's too much paint concentrated, and so it kind of runs. Now, when you're using a professional or a semi-professional spray gun, you atomize the paint very well, so that means you get smaller droplets. So those droplets are the ones that kind of cover more evenly, and you can see the coverage a lot better, and you won't get those runs as easy as you would with the spray can. Now, you could go back and sand the spray paint, like from a can. You can go back and color sand it and then make sure it's all even, and then go back with your clear coat. And if you get runs with the clear coat, you can go back and sand it. It just takes a lot of work, but it can be done. So that shouldn't discourage you. If you don't have the means to buy a compressor or one of those guns, just get yourself some spray paint guns, practice on a few panels, and then do it on your bike and you'll be fine. Now, like you see here, the paint came out good. I think it's time to move on to the rest of the bike, and I'll be showing you that on the next video. So stick around, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I appreciate any support that I can have to keep doing projects like this, and I'll see you on the next one.